A new EXCO lineup announced. Bernard Chan will become the convener. The U.S. asked China to do more to rein in North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. And a Michigan airport stabbing case being investigated as an act of terrorism.
Good evening. The Office of the Chief Executive-elect has announced the new lineup of the Executive Council for the next term of government. Bernard Chan will be the new convener, and there will be 6 new faces in the body that assist the CE in policymaking. Adam Hsu reports.
Besides 16 principal officials that will sit in the Executive Council, the Office of the CE-elect has appointed as many non-official members of the body. The convener, as expected, will be Bernard Chan, Carrie Lam's right-hand man since she kicked off her election campaign. Chow Chung-kong, Laura Cha, Arthur Lee and Fannie Law will stay on. So will pro-business lawmakers Jeffrey Lam, Tommy Chung and Martin Liao, as well as senior pro-establishment figure Ip Kwok Him.
Housing issues, MPF offsetting. It's important that we have EXCO members from the current administration to stay on so that we can continue the dialogue with enough members who understand the background while we bring on new members and hopefully new perspective.
The newcomers included Joseph Yam, who used to head the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Ronnie Tong, founder of centrist political group Path of Democracy, Horace Cheung, a lawmaker of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong, and Lam Ching Choi, Elderly Commission chairman.
Having the background of being a pan-Democrat in all my political life, I hope that I will be able to more truly and directly reflect how pan-Democrats think and how they tend to react to various issues.
Since Mr. Tong quitted the Civic Party, he has made it very clear that he has to depart from the traditional Democratic platform and had his own way. I don't think Mr. Tong can represent the Democrats at EXCO.
New People's Party lawmaker Regina Ip is back in the policy-making body. She quit last year for her failed CE bid.
Well, I don't think I need any consolation. I decided to rejoin EXCO at the invitation of Mrs. Lam and with full support from the Central Committee of my party.
Cheung Hock Ming, vice chairman of the rural advisory body Hong Yi Kok, will leave the council citing health reasons. He will be succeeded by the Kok's chairman Kenneth Lau. Also leaving EXCO will be prominent pro-Beijing figure Cheng Yu-tong, who has been serving as a member of the body since the establishment of the SAR. Federation of Trade Unions legislator Wong Kwok Kin will take over. Wong wants the government's policies to incorporate workers' views from the outset. Carrie Lam noted that she valued the diverse backgrounds represented by the 16 members, and she believed the expertise they bring to the table from those diverse views will help in shaping her policies. Adam Hsu, TVB News.
Secretary for Food and Health Ko Wing-man today gave a vote of confidence to his successor, Sophia Chan. This comes after some question if her nursing background would earn her respect and recognition from the medical sector. Elmi Lung reports.
A show of unity between officials at the Food and Health Bureau. With roughly a week left in office, Ko Wing-man, one of the city's most popular secretaries, openly thanked his political assistant, Rebecca Chan. He extended his gratitude to successor Sophia Chan and defended her. That's amid reports the medical sector may not fully respect Chan, as she's not a medical doctor.
Professor Chan is a very seasoned healthcare professional, well-respected academic. There is no absolute rule that this position must be carried by a medical doctor, but I have full confidence in Professor Chan.
Chan, who has a nursing background, will be the only female principal official in the new administration.
Very difficult to find one person that has all the background that covers both medical and food safety and also environmental hygiene. In terms of being suitable or quality of being a Secretary for Food and Health in terms of health policy is really competence and also experience and also, I think, dedication and commitment.
But there was no mention today on the policies she'll focus on when she leads the bureau. After leaving office, Ko Wing-man plans to return to private practice as an orthopedist. He also said it's rather unlikely he will take on full-time public duties in the future. Elmi Long, TVB News.
The newest batch of lucky applicants who will get a chance to choose subsidized home ownership scheme flats was revealed today. The flat choosing process is scheduled for August. Winna Wong reports.
The lucky draw began bright and early at the Housing Authority Customer Service Center. The draw this time is for flats at Choi Hing Court in Choi Hong, Ngan Ho Court, and Ngan Wai Court in Mui Wo, and several leftover flats from previous sessions. There are a total of 2,108 flats on offer. But as always, demand far exceeded supply. A total of 104,000 application forms were received. About 12% of them were so-called green form applicants. They are applicants who want to exchange their public rental housing for a home ownership scheme flat. The first 10 numbers drawn this morning were 36, 17, 21, 43, 84, 47, 24, 26, 85, and 71. Hopefuls with applicant numbers that end with these digits will be able to choose HOS units according to this order. This lucky 18-year-old girl is a first-time applicant. Her applicant number ends with 36, which means she will be in the first batch of people who get to choose a flat. I feel like I'm dreaming, she said. It's even better than winning the lottery, her mother agreed. She says they were planning to go for flats in Mui Wo, but now have their sights set on Choi Hong units. But don't get excited too soon. While only 12% of the applicants this time are green form candidates, half of the flats are allocated for green formers. And even for white form candidates, households with elderly family members will get to choose first, then ordinary families, before single people get their pick. But 100 flats have been reserved for singles. The flat choosing process will begin in August, and successful candidates will be able to move in as early as 2018. Winna Wong, TVB News.
The United States has pressed China to put more diplomatic and economic pressure on North Korea to curb its nuclear and missile weapons program. Other contentious security issues were also discussed during the bilateral meetings in Washington, D.C. This includes disputes over the South China Sea. Tony Sabine reports.
High-level talks in the U.S. Capitol between senior American and Chinese diplomatic and defense officials were overshadowed by the death this week of a U.S. college student who was released from imprisonment in North Korea in a coma. The Trump administration has publicly urged China to do more to rein in North Korea and work with the United States to neutralize the threat from Pyongyang.
They have a diplomatic responsibility to exert much greater economic and diplomatic pressure on the regime if they want to prevent further escalation in the region. Whether it is money laundering, extorting Korean expatriates, or malicious cyber activity, North Korea has engaged in a number of criminal enterprises that help fund its weapons programs. We must step up our efforts to help to curtail these sources of revenue.
Trump has been counting on China to use its economic leverage to squeeze Pyongyang as concern grows over the North's acceleration towards having a nuclear missile that could strike the U.S. mainland. Trump tweeted ahead of Wednesday's talks that Beijing's efforts to sway Pyongyang weren't working. The foreign ministry in Beijing disagreed with Trump, saying China had been making unremitting efforts to bring the North Korean nuclear issue back to the negotiating table, but it required collective efforts from the other parties to do so. Other serious concerns were also discussed, including Beijing's expansion in disputed waters in the South China Sea.
We also discussed the importance of freedom of navigation elsewhere in the region and the peaceful resolution of those disputes in the maritime space, and we discussed ways to decrease tension and reduce risk in the South China Sea.
Beijing has always maintained it is willing to engage in dialogue with its neighbors to reduce tensions in the South China Sea. The US and China also talked about improving military communications and hoped the diplomatic and security dialogue would lay the groundwork for Trump's state visit to China later this year. Tony Saboin, TVB News.
A Canadian man from Tunisia is under arrest in the U.S. state of Michigan in connection with a stabbing attack on a police officer in an airport. Authorities are calling it an act of terrorism, saying the suspect was shouting during the attack about people being killed in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Alan Booknia with more.
The attack yesterday occurred in Bishop International Airport in Flint, Michigan. Authorities evacuated the airport after the incident and stepped up security in the city about 80 kilometers northeast of Detroit. Police say the attacker, identified as 49-year-old Amor Fatoui of Montreal, Canada, stabbed Lieutenant Jeff Neville in the neck with a large knife while shouting "God is great" in Arabic and referring to people killed in fighting overseas. The suspect was quickly subdued by other officers and arrested. Neville was initially listed in critical condition, but is now listed as stable.
Lieutenant Neville got him to stop stabbing him. Lieutenant Neville fought him right to the end, right until I was able to handcuff this person. After Lieutenant Neville never stopped fighting.
The FBI is classing the case as an act of terrorism.
When the subject went up to the officer and stabbed him, he continued to exclaim Allah, and he made a statement, something to the effect of, "You have killed people in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and we are all going to die."
Chelio said they have nothing to indicate Fatoui had any special training and are treating the incident as a lone wolf attack.
Suffice it to say, he has a hatred for the United States and a variety of other things which in part motivated him towards coming to the airport today to conduct this act of violence.
Police in Montreal raided Fatoui's home and took 3 people staying there in for questioning. Fatoui has been charged with violence at an international airport, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law can add peace broker to his White House advisor role. This as Jared Kushner met with Israeli and Palestinian leaders in the hope of forging peace in the region.
How are you? Kushner is now chief Middle East advisor to President Trump. His first task was to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He and other U.S. officials are tasked with laying the groundwork for fostering genuine peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Netanyahu reaffirmed his commitment to advancing Trump's goal of shaping a two-state solution.
This is an opportunity to pursue our common goals of security, prosperity, and peace. And Jared, I welcome you here in that spirit. I know of your efforts, the president's efforts, and I look forward to working with you to achieve these common goals.
Thank you. The president sends his best regards.
Then Kushner was off to a late-night meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas that lasted 2 hours. This month marks the 50th anniversary of the 1967 Mideast War, an event in which Israel captured the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. While the Palestinians claim these territories for their future independent state, Netanyahu opposes a return to the 1967 lines. Still, Trump aims to pressure Israel on restraining its construction of settlements on occupied lands sought by the Palestinians. Palestinians call the settlements illegal and insist that since Trump took office, the problem has worsened.
It must be said that since President Trump was elected, Israel enhanced and increased its settlements, illegal activities in the occupied territories by 70%. So the real question here is, will the administration of Trump tell Israel that it is enough and they have to stop immediately all settlement activities.
Because Trump and Netanyahu have an excellent relationship, this expert expressed confidence.
And certainly Israel is going to encourage anything the American administration, President Trump, will be willing to do and will be wanting to do in order to move peace forward.
Iraq's Ministry of Defense says the Islamic State militant group destroyed an iconic mosque in Mosul. It says the group detonated explosives inside Al-Nuri Mosque and its leaning minaret. Also known as Mosul's Great Mosque, it's where Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi declared the caliphate in 2014. The leaning minaret had stood there for more than 840 years. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi tweeted that its destruction is an admission by the militant group that it's losing the fight for Iraq's second largest city. Islamic State blamed an airstrike by the United States for the loss of the mosque and minaret.
Still ahead in our news, Russian defense minister's plane buzzed by a NATO fighter jet over the Baltic Sea. A labor dispute between outsourced hospital cleaners and their employer settled. And new KMB buses to hit the road later this month.
Welcome back. Russia's foreign minister said the security situation near his country's borders is getting more dangerous because of NATO activity. Foreign Minister Sergei Shoigu showed video of a NATO F-16 fighter buzzing a plane he was on. A Russian Sukhoi 27 fighter jet then inserted itself between the two aircraft. It tilted to show its weaponry. The F-16 then left the area. Shoigu says NATO's exercises over the Baltic Sea reflect the alliance's anti-Russia course. He said the country's military will form 20 new units along its western frontier by the end of the year. The Baltic Sea has become an area of rising tensions between Moscow and NATO.
Outsourced cleaning workers at the Hospital Authority's Kowloon East cluster have settled a labor dispute with their employer. Adam Shu reports.
Around 50 workers staged a sit-in at Cheongkwon Hospital this morning, demanding severance payments. Their employer's contract with the Hospital Authority will soon expire, and the company failed in its bid for a new one. The cleaners said the company will send them to workplaces in other districts, or they will have to resign. The workers insisted the company dismiss them and give them severance payments, which the employer capped at $2,000. That's a mere fraction of many workers' due share because they have been with the firm for a long time. Representatives of the firm and the Hospital Authority met with the workers this afternoon. The cleaners conceded to the employer's offer to pay anyone who have been with the firm for at least 2 years $500 for every year of service. The cleaners returned to their work afterwards. Adam Shu, TVB News.
The Education Bureau has asked schools to reserve specific dates next year for the basic competency assessment. But authorities say they have yet to decide whether the test for primary 3 students will continue next year. They say a final decision will be announced later. Soon after she became the city's next Chief Executive, Carrie Lam had suggested the current government should suspend this year's BCA exam, but the idea was rejected by Leung Chun-ying.
Kowloon Motor Bus Company will upgrade its fleet. The first 3 new buses will hit the road later this month. They will stand out from the current models in its red exterior. Seats will be designed for Asian body shapes. Passengers can power up their mobile devices from any of the 12 charging spots inside the bus. Free Wi-Fi will also be provided. KMB said it will introduce 70 such new vehicles by the end of this year. All right, Chris, what do you have for us in sports today?
Well, we've got something a little bit different. It's basketball, but maybe not what you're expecting. So let's try something different. Serbia won their third 3-on-3 Basketball World Cup after beating the Dutch in a thrilling final in France. The defending
Jeff Tang, TVB News.
And they say that cats are more independent than dogs, but one clever canine in Brazil proves otherwise. Meet Patuco. This 12-year-old dog literally goes shopping for his own food every day. Come rain or shine, he fetches his treats at a pet store blocks away from his home. And even though he's blind in one eye, he doesn't need his owner's help, but he can't get away without paying. His owner does settle his bill every day to keep Patuco out of doggy jail. And that is an adorable wrap of our news.
All right. Good night.
Can computers and robots solve manpower shortages?